They looked like just another couple on Instagram, smiling, traveling, posting cute couple trends. But behind those filters was a nightmare. Because 8 months ago, in broad daylight, Shakyia Allen, a young mother with a bright future, was hunted down like prey and murdered on camera. The video went viral. Her screams echoed across the internet. But what if I told you that wasn't the whole story? What if Shakyia died hiding a secret, and her killer wasn't acting alone? You're watching Everything Crime. If you care about real stories, about truth, about justice, take a second to subscribe. These stories matter. And together, we can make sure they're never forgotten. She looked like any other young woman in love, radiant, confident, and full of laughter. On social media, Shakyia Allen, just 27 years old, was the image of joy. Her photos were filled with smiles, dance videos with her daughter, and occasional clips with her boyfriend, Amir Johnson. Friends described their relationship as cute, and strangers often admire their chemistry online. But as we've learned far too often in these stories, sometimes what you see is a mask hiding a much darker truth. Behind the bright filters and playful captions, something else was forming. Something controlling. Something dangerous. Shakyia, lovingly called Shaki by her family, was a single mother raising her young daughter, Storm, with pride and dedication. She had a tight-knit family in Baltimore, Maryland, and they were her everything. Her father, Nikia, and her younger sister, Chain, were her anchors. They were the people she laughed with, leaned on, and trusted more than anyone else in the world. So when she introduced him to a new guy, 24-year-old Amir Johnson from New York, there was no reason to worry. He was charming, respectful, well-mannered. He talked politely, smiled often, and even called her father Pops. He fit in too well, maybe. The first time I met him, Nikia would later say, his voice heavy with betrayal, I thought he was just a cool little kid. No red flags. Nothing off. But real danger rarely announces itself at the door. It creeps in slowly, like a shadow stretching at dusk. At first, it feels like love. Then it starts to tighten around your neck. In private, Amir was becoming obsessive, possessive, jealous. When Shaki started spending more time on herself, working more hours, setting goals, planning her future, Amir didn't celebrate her growth. He resented it. If you're trying to elevate your life, Chain remembered her sister saying, why can't you separate yourself from your old crowd? That was Shaki's new mantra. Growth. Focus. Stability for her and her daughter. But Amir wasn't ready to let go. Not gently, not respectfully, and definitely not safely. He began showing up uninvited, calling constantly, tracking her. He placed a tracker under her car, without her knowledge. And when she went out with coworkers, male or female, he'd find a way to show up. I told him, Nikia said in frustration. She don't even check in with me like that. Why should she check in with you? It was no longer love. It was surveillance. Still, Shaki tried to handle it quietly. Like many women in her situation, she confided in her family, but never gave them the full weight of what she was enduring. She didn't want to worry them. She didn't want to be seen as weak. She'd tell me about little arguments, Chain said, her voice trembling. But she never told me anything too dark. She was protecting me. Eventually, it got to the point where Shakyia filed protective order against Amir. It was the beginning of her standing up. But even that process was fragile. Neither of them showed up in court the first time. The judge dismissed the case. Weeks passed. Then a domestic violence call brought police back to their doorstep. Amir claimed things got heated, but insisted he never laid a hand on her. A new restraining order was issued. He was given a court date for the domestic assault. Shaki, meanwhile, was trying to move on. She was working, focusing on her daughter, and preparing to start fresh. Her TikTok account returned to its usual content. Funny skits, heartfelt mother-daughter moments. She never looked like a woman who was afraid, but inside, she was bracing herself. She was trying to take her life back. Chain said she was really trying, and that's what hurts the most. What no one knew, what no one could have guessed, was that Amir wasn't just obsessing. He was planning 8 days before the court date. He made his move. Before we dive in, let me ask you this. Have you or someone you know ever tried to leave a toxic relationship and felt like it wasn't over, even after walking away? Tell us in the comments, because what you're about to hear is a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous time isn't when you stay. It's when you try to leave. There's a kind of bravery that doesn't get applauded. It's not loud. It doesn't get posted. It looks like quietly packing your things, signing a lease on a new place, walking away from someone who says they love you, but hurts you instead. Shakyia Allen had finally made that decision. After months of emotional manipulation and escalating tension, she was ready to escape the relationship that had consumed her peace. Her priority was her 3-year-old daughter, Storm. She wasn't thinking about hashtags or validation. She just wanted to be free. She moved into her new apartment complex, a fresh start, a place where she could breathe again, or so she thought. But Amir Johnson wasn't done, not even close. He watched from the shadows. Not literally, maybe, but in every way that mattered. He was keeping tabs. He knew her routines, where she parked, what time she came home, the exact moment she would feel safe enough to let her guard down. That's the horrifying truth of domestic violence. Even when you leave, they might still be watching. Let me pause and ask you, do you think restraining orders are enough to keep victims safe? Should there be stronger systems in place to monitor abusers who've shown controlling behavior? Drop your thoughts below. Despite the protective order, Amir stalked her. Not the romantic kind of win-her-back chase. This was the sinister kind, the calculated kind, the kind that ends in a parking lot with a loaded weapon. But in the days leading up to the attack, Shakyia tried to reclaim her life. She posted TikToks with Storm. She sent silly messages to her sister. She texted her father to check in. From the outside, everything looked okay. Inside, though, she was uneasy. And that's why she did something that's now heartbreaking to even think about. She started recording. She had a feeling, a gut instinct. And when a woman has that kind of fear, it's never irrational. It's never just being dramatic. It's survival. April 6th, it was a warm afternoon in Baltimore. Shakyia was in the parking lot of her new apartment. She had no idea Amir was nearby until he walked toward her, slow, deliberate, and armed. She immediately pulled out her phone. "You need to leave me alone," she says, her voice shaky but firm. "You're only going to get yourself in trouble. I have a restraining order on you." But he didn't leave. He didn't turn back. He raised a gun. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be that afraid? That helpless? That cornered? What would you do in that moment? Could you run? Would you freeze? She screamed. People nearby started filming. Her final moments were recorded not just by her, but by horrified bystanders who couldn't believe what they were seeing. "Hey, leave her alone. Don't you hurt her. Stop, stop." The shots rang out. In broad daylight, in front of witnesses, in front of cameras. And then silence. Just like that, Shakyia Allen was gone. A mother, a sister, a daughter, a friend, murdered in cold blood by the very man who once called her his future. Pause for a second. If you're watching this right now, comment one word that comes to mind when you hear Shakyia's story so far. Heartbreak, rage, helplessness. Let the world see her name and your reaction. Broken heart. And just when you think this story couldn't get any colder, Amir did something that still haunts her family to this day. Moments after killing her, Amir sent a text. Not to a friend, not to the police. He texted her father. "It was nice knowing you, Jack." Let that sink in. He murdered his daughter, then sent a smirking goodbye to the man who had embraced him, mentored him, called him family. Shakyia couldn't believe it. He thought it was a mistake. A prank. "What the hell is he talking about?" he said. I texted him back. I said, "I'll hit you later." He didn't yet know his daughter was lying in a parking lot, bleeding out. He didn't know the man he had once treated like a son had just shattered his life. The video, the screaming, the gunfire, it all made its way to social media. Quickly, what started as a private tragedy became a national horror story. People all over the country watched in shock. But for those who loved Shakyia, it wasn't just viral. It was devastating. "I've never watched the video," Chain whispered in an interview. "I can't. Just hearing her voice, her being scared like that, it breaks me." And she wasn't the only one. Hundreds of women across the internet began sharing their own fears, their own stories. It sparked a conversation, but also a question. Why wasn't she protected? Why did Amir still have access to her? Why did the system fail? Comment below if you think law enforcement needs more power in these situations. Should GPS monitors be required for offenders with restraining orders? Should protective orders come with emergency alerts? This isn't where the story ends. This is where the nightmare truly begins. Because Amir didn't turn himself in. He didn't confess. He vanished. And Shakyia's little girl was left without a mother. Before we continue, I want you to take a moment to imagine receiving this message. It was nice knowing you. Now imagine that it came from the man who just killed your daughter. What would you do? What would you feel in that moment? Let us know in the comments below. He looked at his phone, confused. Shakyia Allen, a proud father who had done everything to raise a strong daughter, stared at the message like it was a joke. "It was nice knowing you, Jack." Amir Johnson, the boy he once hugged, mentored, and trusted like family, had just murdered his daughter and sent him a twisted farewell. "At first, I thought he was playing," Shakyia said, his voice cracking. "I texted back, 'I'll hit you later.' I didn't know. I didn't know she was gone." But minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, the voice on the other end wasn't joking. It was the police. And the words he heard would change everything. "There's been a shooting, Mr. Allen. It's your daughter. She didn't make it." Let me ask you, could you stay standing if you heard that? How do you breathe after being told your child is gone? Shakyia collapsed. He was no longer a father with a daughter. He was a broken man with a memory. Shakyia was his joy, his friend, his reason to keep going. When he was having a bad day, she'd send him jokes. When he felt lost, she'd say, "Dad, it's going to be okay. I got you." Now, she was gone, forever. And Amir, the man who took her life, had vanished without a trace. They say funerals bring closure. But for the Allen family, there was no closure, only confusion, anger, and the kind of grief that can't be contained by tears alone. Shakyia's casket sat at the front of the church, white, surrounded by pink flowers and photos of her smiling. Her daughter, Storm, just 3 years old, walked up to it and whispered words no child should ever say. "I don't have a mommy no more." Everyone in the room broke. Chain ran out of the building, sobbing. Shakyia nearly fainted. It was like she knew, Shakyia later said. Like Storm could feel something was missing. Permanently. You hear it all the time in the news. The victim's family is grieving. But what does that really mean? For the Allens, it means Chain waking up in the middle of the night, hearing her sister's screams in her dreams. Shakyia walking past a room where he used to get calls from Shaki and instinctively reaching for a phone that won't ring anymore. Storm asking for her mommy every day, only to be met with silence and sobs. "It's hard to even start healing," Chain said in an interview, "because Amir is still free. He's still out there, and that makes it worse." Amir Johnson didn't just disappear. He evaporated. Despite the video, the witness accounts, the text message to the victim's father, and the nationwide coverage, he wasn't arrested. He wasn't even seen. How is that possible? How can someone be caught on camera committing murder in broad daylight and still be missing for over 8 months? That's the question haunting Shakyia's family and frustrating viewers around the world. The Baltimore police and NYPD believe Amir fled to New York, where he has family. But with no confirmed sightings, no major leads, and no meaningful reward, he's just gone. "There's no way he's hiding this long without help," Shakyia said. "Somebody's feeding him, housing him, protecting him. And every day they do that, they're part of this murder." Perhaps the most offensive detail in this entire investigation, the reward offered for information leading to Amir's arrest. $2,000. That's it. A human life, reduced to a few $1,000s, less than a used iPhone. It was a slap in the face, Nakia said, shaking his head. That's not a reward. That's a parking ticket. Even former homicide detectives publicly criticized the offer, calling it disrespectful and ineffective. $2,000 will make anyone pick up the phone, one expert said. But community outrage might. If you're watching this and feel frustrated by how this case is being handled, say it in the comments. Do you think police have done enough? Should the reward be increased? Would you speak out if you saw something? Every day since that horrific moment, the Allens have chosen to keep fighting, not just for justice, but for Shakyia's legacy. They post her photos. They speak at community events. They push for better domestic violence protections and stronger responses to abuse reports. We're not going to stop, Chain said. My sister mattered. Her story matters. And so does Storm's future. They're keeping Shakyia's name alive. Even while Amir continues to hide in the dark. But the clock is ticking. And the question remains, where's Amir Johnson? And how long will the world let him stay free? If you made it this far, ask yourself, how long would you fight for justice if your sister was gunned down on camera and her killer was still free? Would you still believe in the system? Or would you take matters into your own hands? Tell us in the comments. Because Shakyia's family, they're still waiting for answers. And her little girl is still waking up without a mother. They say children don't remember much at age 3. But some memories carve themselves into your soul. Storm, Shakyia Allen's daughter, didn't fully understand death. Not really. But when she looked around the church at her mother's funeral, when she saw the casket, when her tiny voice whispered, "I don't have a mommy no more," it shattered everyone in the room. That moment, said Shakyia Allen, was the worst pain I've ever felt. Because how do you comfort a child who's just been introduced to grief? Storm clung to her Aunt Chain at the funeral. She didn't want to let go. And Chain, barely holding herself together, did what she could. But how do you explain murder to a toddler? How do you say, "Mommy's not coming back," because someone who once claimed to love her didn't know how to let her live? Every night since, Storm has asked for her mother. Sometimes in whispers. Sometimes in tears. Sometimes she just walks around the house, looking, calling softly, "Mommy?" And there's no answer, just silence. Chain says the most painful part is that Storm still remembers her mother's voice, the way she sang lullabies, the way she laughed. But she's slowly starting to forget her smell, her hugs, the feeling of being held. That's what keeps me up at night, Chain said, that a man stole those things from her, that he made my niece motherless, and he's still breathing free air. Let's rewind for a moment. Shakyia Allen was murdered in broad daylight. There were eyewitnesses. There was a graphic viral video. The killer even texted her father, admitting what he did. He was identified within minutes. And yet, Amir Johnson is still not in custody. How? How is that possible? This was an execution, said a retired homicide detective during a live interview. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated, cold, and the fact that he's still on the run is an embarrassment. According to investigators, Amir likely fled Baltimore shortly after the murder and went to New York City, where he has family. But from there, the trail vanished. No confirmed sightings. No social media activity. No arrests. Law enforcement says someone is helping him. Someone who is either housing him, feeding him, or keeping his secrets. There's no way surviving this long without support, Nakia said. He's not a ghost. He's a coward, but he's got enablers. And then there's a so-called reward, $2,000 for information leading to Amir's arrest. Let's be honest, that's not justice. That's a formality. Would you risk your safety to turn in a murder suspect for $2,000? Especially one you might be related to? It's a slap in the face not just to Shakyia's family, but to every woman who's tried to leave an abuser and was failed by the system. That amount won't motivate. It won't spark outrage. It won't do anything unless the community steps in. And yet, 8 months later, nothing. Baltimore can't find him. New York can't find him. That's what they keep telling us, Chain said. But my question is, are they really looking? Shakyia Allen has lost sleep. He's lost hope, regained it, then lost again. But one thing he refuses to lose, his fight for justice. "You're gonna have to see me," he said in a message to Amir. "So, you might as well turn yourself in. This way we both can start a process." Those words may sound calm, but underneath them is a hurricane of grief, rage, and betrayal. This wasn't just his daughter's boyfriend. This was a boy he took under his wing, a young man he fed, counseled, even treated like a son. "He used to say I was like a father to him," Shakyia said, "and this is the betrayal I got in return." For 8 months, this family has lived with the unbearable. A funeral instead of a wedding, a daughter instead of mother, a phone that never rings from the one person they want to hear from most. People keep saying time heals. That's a lie, Chain said. Time doesn't heal when the killer is still free, when you're forced to relive the trauma every day. Let me ask you, viewers, if Amir was hiding in your neighborhood and you knew, would you say something? Or would fear keep you quiet? Be honest, because in this story, silence is betrayal. Shakyia Allen wasn't just another victim. She was a sister, a mother, a daughter, a light, and her story should never be reduced to a clip on social media. She loved hard. She laughed loud. She believed in second chances. And even when her heart was breaking, she tried to handle everything with grace. That's the kind of woman Amir tried to erase. But her family, they refused to let him win. "We'll scream her name until the day he's in cuffs," Shakyia said. "And even then, we won't stop. If the story moved you, don't just scroll away. Say her name in the comments. Share this video. And ask yourself, if it was your sister, your daughter, your best friend, would you stop screaming for justice after 8 months? Because her family hasn't. And neither should we. Her name was Shakyia Allen. She wasn't a headline. She wasn't a viral video. She was a living, breathing soul, full of laughter, love, and light. A mother who doted on her daughter. A sister who protected her baby siblings like a lioness. A daughter who told her father, "It's going to be okay, Dad. I got you." And now she's gone. Taken by a man who couldn't let go. A man who called her his world. Then loaded a gun and ended hers. In the months following her murder, the community has asked the same questions over and over. Why didn't the system protect her? Why wasn't the original protective order enforced? Why was Amir allowed to keep stalking her without consequences? And why, after a video confession and a direct text to her father, is he still free? Let us know in the comments what you believe should have happened differently. Should victims have emergency GPS alerts when a restraining order is violated? Should domestic abusers be tracked like sex offenders? This isn't just about one man. It's about a culture that too often ignores the warning signs until it's too late. Shakyia tried to leave. She tried to protect herself. She filed for help. She told her family something wasn't right. But in the end, no one came in time. "We didn't take it seriously enough," her father admitted through tears. And now, we wake up every day in a house with her photos, but know her. How many more women have to die this way? How many more little girls like Storm have to grow up with whispers about what happened to mommy? Storm is growing now. She's asking harder questions. She wants to know why everyone else has a mommy, but she doesn't. She still clings to her Aunt Chain. Still asks for bedtime stories about her mom. Still cries when she sees balloons float into the sky, because she thinks they're messages to heaven. "We promised her," Chain said. "We promised we'd never let her forget who her mother was. Brave, funny, strong, and most of all, loved." And so they tell Storm about the woman who danced in the kitchen, who hugged her tighter than anyone else, who recorded her last moments not in fear, but in defiance, because somewhere inside her, Shakyia knew the world needed to see the truth. Even if it couldn't save her, maybe it would save someone else. As of today, Amir Johnson remains a fugitive, wanted for a first-degree murder, believed to be hiding in New York City, possibly with the help of friends or relatives. He is considered armed and dangerous. The reward for information? Still only $2,000. If you know something, anything, please call the Baltimore County Police at 410-887-3943 or submit an anonymous tip. Don't stay silent, because silence is what got us here. Before we close, let's leave you with the words of Shakyia Allen, the man who lost his daughter but refuses to lose hope. I just want him caught, not for revenge, for justice, for Storm, for my daughter who thought she was finally free. He took her body, but he won't take her story. We'll keep saying her name until the whole damn world hears it. Her name was Shakyia Allen. She mattered. She was loved. She deserved better. And as long as you remember her, she'll never be forgotten. If you believe her story deserves justice, if you believe in protecting victims before it's too late, share this video. Comment with a dove to honor her life. Subscribe for more true crime stories that demand attention, not just entertainment. And please, if you know anything about Amir Johnson's whereabouts, do the right thing. Silence helps killers. But your voice, your tip, it could save someone's life. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You just watched a Crime Shocker original. We'll see you in the next case.